Okay. So he's now. How do I get rid of that? There we go. Don't want things in my way. So he's now understanding place. Okay. And you've done it sometimes with the crate door open, the crate door closed. Now, other tools that would be beneficial going forward are remote collar, a real remote collar. But technically, if you do place training properly, you don't need a remote collar. Okay. But the remote collar ties you into, and the place training, those two things tie you together very nicely. And the prong, I guess, into this where he resource guards, where he claims stuff. Okay. Um, so we have to be able to, we've now taught him place. You then bring in distraction. Okay, because part of his distraction can also be things that he would normally claim on the floor. So you want to be, first of all, whenever you're doing any sort of resource guarding challenge and trying to get rehabilitation, you want to make sure that everything is very safe for you and the dog as much as possible, fair to both of you, and it makes sense. So what makes sense to the dog is touch, the way you're touching the dog, and then of course your body language and your tone and your energy, all these things. The thing the dog understands the least is the word that's coming out your mouth. So you want to make sure that you're more aware of dog at that time when he's being primal Rottweiler. You have to make sure you speak in his language at that time, which is the way you're touching. And you said it yourself, like, oh, he knows fine when he's got something, we blooming basically back off and leave him, and he gets it. Fine, it doesn't sit right with you because you just become like the dog's bitch at that point, and he wins, and offering, the bad guy a nicer thing to not do as a bad a thing. Here, I'll take my TV instead of my
I know.
whatever. It's crazy, right?
Since
But
he got
mhm,
muzzled, it was more a case of, it wasn't that. It was I
yeah,
would like grab him by the harness, not the collar. I'd take him by the harness, move him away, tell him to sit, and
yeah,
wait till I picked it up. Then I would go and give him a treat.
yeah,
That's where I
yeah.
got to after that.
Yes, and that process isn't necessarily wrong. It's just you can do it better and speed it up. So,
Good.
um,
Thank God.
yeah, because if you do it just that way, it's going to take you forever, and it's
Mhm.
still very it doesn't quite make sense. You're being
Yeah.
fair to the animal, but maybe not as fair to yourself because it's
No.
not very safe.
No.
So we have to make sure that it's fair, safe, and makes sense.
Mhm.
So the ideal in that scenario, the best option would be teaching a remote collar. That makes things very safe. Okay, so you've got a remote collar. You've already taught. Let's just say you've taught him the remote collar. Everybody knows the language of the collar, so that's important. So then, what you haven't been doing is, and what is kind of vital for claiming stuff, is that yeah, the dog we kind of like managed to move him away or whatever and tell him to sit, and we pulled him back with the harness, because he's got a muzzle on, and we told him to leave it or whatever, and he's done that because we physically moved him.
Yeah.
But then a lot of times we take the object and we take whatever it was and we take it away from him,
Right. Yeah.
right? And that's the beginning of the problem. Is
Right.
the dog's only moved because we've physically manhandled him away, but the brain is still wanting to be there.
Right.
Secondly, whoever moves away first is the submissive one. So, and that also can include, now he's been physically moved away, but he isn't submitting. Secondly,
Right.
you've taken the object and taken it away. Whereas what you ideally, when you know you've really claimed something, is you can take that same object. I don't know, let's just say even it's a dog that's not being as extreme, but they go to steal the blooming packet of cheese. So what you do is you would correct the dog and stand over the cheese, and then move away and leave the cheese, or take that cheese or whatever object he's got and put it right back down in front of him. Go on, I dare you to take that. And the way you know that he's learning is as soon as you put that object down, he moves away from it. He
Right.
submits and goes, no, that's yours, and moves away. Now, when he then moves away like that, boom, that's when you pay him.
Right.
And you're like, yes, good choice. And then you pay him for that. But he has to learn to move away from that object. You want to be able to take that object and make it powerful. Like, no, you never touch X, Y, and Z. There's some things you never touch, and there's other things it doesn't matter. As soon as I enter within your intimate space, less than 2 or 3 feet, say in a home, you get up and you move and you leave that thing alone.
Right.
That's what he has to learn. There's lots of good videos online. Generally, it's called the out command.
Right.
Whereas that's kind of an American term. In the UK, would generally say like leave it or whatever, but that's really what it is the out command. So the best is when he's then got that object, say it in his mouth or he's standing over it or whatever. If you've got remote collar on, you're able to find that level that gets his attention, but you create a force field, if you like, around you. So then he can be like, whoa, and then gets the touch and, oh, okay, and moves back.
Mm-hmm.
And you then take that and you're linking, yes, the word
Yeah.
with that touch, and then you are claiming it. And of course, he then moves off. You're like, good, and you pay him for that. You then take the object, put it back down in front of him. He moves away. You're like, good, now we're getting there.
Mm-hmm.
So the best option is with remote collar.
Oh.
Second best option would be, okay, yeah, with a muzzle and a prong collar.
Right.
So have the prong on with a leash. If he's really extreme, then you would have maybe somebody standing at the side with him on a leash, holding the leash. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that when you then move towards to get the object and he then challenges you, that person is able to pop the leash to make him move away with them, and you're able to go in and claim. Does that make
Would
sense?
I be putting things in his way then to try and
Yeah.
make him take?
Yeah, you need
that?
to set it. You need to be proactive, so you need to set it up. If you only do it when you're reactive, then you're like, "Oh crap, he's got that sock that I didn't realize I left lying around," and that's always leaving you on the back foot.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you've got to be
Yeah.
on the front foot. You've got to be able to put time aside and actively practice it. So you go, right, okay, next 10 minutes, let's a few times a day, let's get objects that we know that we think he would maybe try and claim, but make sure that we are sufficiently tooled up to be able to challenge and win that challenge that behavior and win. So right now you're kind of doing that, but I've got his harness on and I've got a muzzle and things, but there's just better tools than that. So having a prong on him or having a remote collar, obviously remote collars, you don't have a remote collar, a real remote collar, so there's an expense in that, but also the difference in using that is amazing. But you can achieve the same results, but with technically, but with a prong. But the better the tool, the less physical you need to be with your dog. So with the harness, you have to be and the muzzle, you have to be very physical with your dog. You have to drag it. It doesn't mean you're hurting him or whatever, but you need to get into this bit of this physical battle. So that's why it takes longer. Whereas if you were using, say, a slip lead, you'd be less physical. You'd be able to snap him out of it a bit easier and quicker. But then the prong call is even easier. You're able to use less physical again and be able to challenge him and win and get his attention. And then the remote call is even less physical, but you get an even better result. So it's trying to use as little physical as possible to get the most psychological from your dog. So what you then do, let's just say whatever way you've done it, say right now you're getting a prong tomorrow or whatever. So let's just say you're practicing with the prong, give him a pop. He goes, cool, sorry, yeah, it's yours. You then claim that object, he walks away. The part of the way that you give him affection is you then put him on place. So you're like, boom, jet, place, yes. And he flies in, good. Because what you're trying to teach him is like when you're tempted to have that cigarette, go for a run instead. You need to teach him that this addiction, this habit that he's had, you're gonna take those cigarettes off him every time. Not happening anymore. But I'm going to show you what to do instead. And that's how you're being very fair to the animal. And then that becomes a default. It could be the same as if he wasn't resource guard and say he went mental when someone came to the door. So then you would correct him for going mental at the door and then go, hey, do this instead. Go and lie in your bed. And he does that. So then over time, what happens is the knock of the door actually triggers the dog to go and lie in his bed because that's how he gets what he wants. It's just association, conditioning to do that. But you have to have the ability to correct, to win, to correct that bad behavior and win it. Be more overwhelming to him than he is to you. And then show him that for that to work, you also have had to show him do this instead. He had to already know what that is. So you have to put the time in for that. That's the two things that you need to do right now. You need to teach him that place, and you need to. What are you thinking with regards to what tool to use?